All right. Welcome, folks. Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Steve Yoss. Welcome back to the office, everybody. This is Turbocharging Your Organizational Reporting with myDBR Part 2. In today's podcast, we are going to be exploring further the myDBR functionality and its incredible tools and features for organizational reporting. It's astounding the different things and use cases that you can use with this incredible tool. This tool could be used for doing everything from simple ledger reports that outline listing of sales, listing of upcoming appointments, listing of employees, and more, to complicated financial statements, dashboards, and really kind of everything in between. My guest today, I am joined by Seppo Laaksonen, who is the founder and principal developer for the last 14 plus years with myDBR. And he will be discussing from his perspective some of the incredible things that this tool can potentially use and be used for. And so we're going to get started here just in a minute, and I'll give an introduction to him just here in a second. But stay tuned. We've got so much incredible resources and knowledge coming your way with respect to myDBR. Now, before we get started, I just want to quickly advise the folks who are attending live today how they can receive their credits for CPE, as well as those of you who might be watching after the fact who might be looking to get credit for watching or listening to today's podcast. Well, good news is after watching or listening to today, you can earn credits for learning about myDBR. For those of you who are attending live, there will be attendance prompts approximately every 12 to 20 minutes or so. There'll be about four for this class. The first one's popping up right now, so feel free to go ahead and respond. When the prompt comes up, please choose a response. Doesn't matter what you choose, as long as you choose something that will confirm your attendance. Prompts might not be announced, so please keep an eye out for them when they pop up. Now, as long as you have responded to 75% of these prompts, you will receive your completion certificate for full credit for today's class. Be delivered by email. It will come most likely later today, but it could come up to 2 days after this event. If you have any issues, please visit cpetoday.com if you have any questions or issues with your certificate. At the conclusion of our course today, there will be an evaluation. If you could plan on sticking around for a couple of minutes after the end of the class and let us know what you thought of today's course, please go ahead and do so. We'd love to know what you think. Your feedback is important so that we can continue to develop outstanding content that you yourself want to learn. And we are here live. So please, if you have any questions about reporting or how myDBR works, we are with the legend himself today who put this together. This is a great time to be able to ask questions. We're happy to explain things more than once, show another example. And if you have any experience with myDBR, I'd love to know that as well. Please use the Q&A functionality or the chat box to let us know if you have any questions or need assistance with anything. Now, for those of you who are attending after the fact that are watching for self-study, if you're watching or listening to our podcast, which again, comes out twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific, you also can earn credit for today's class. However, it will be a self-study course. After watching or listening, head on over to cpetoday.com and use course code DBR2, and you'll complete a short 5-question quiz and you will earn a credit for today's class. Okay. And if you're watching live or watching after the fact, and you're a new listener to the CPE Today podcast, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you have a free credit on us? Use one free podcast at checkout, which is a coupon code. You can earn a free credit of whatever course you'd like, whether it's this course or something else. But one free podcast at checkout, and you can pick a class of whatever you'd like. All right. Once again, as I mentioned, we are joined today by Seppo Laaksonen, who is the principal developer and founder of myDBR. Seppo, if you're there, why don't you go ahead and you could turn on your camera and join us here today and come ahead and say hello. Seppo, previous to myDBR, has been involved on several different software applications and products over the years. This is just the latest of his efforts. He's been involved in many, many different things, building different products. Seppo is based in Finland, and besides building incredible software for reporting, he's also an avid golfer and devoted family man. Seppo, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today, sir?
Just fine. And thank you for the invitation. Always a pleasure to talking with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. I'm not sure. Is Alicia or Seppo, is your camera on? I'm not sure. I'm not seeing you on my
It
side.
is.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get right into it and start talking about myDBR. And I want to point out to our audience, this is actually the second episode of this series. Our first episode, which you can watch for free at cpetoday.com. We go over some of the technical details of getting started with myDBR. And just for those of you who might be joining us who haven't witnessed this before, myDBR is a reporting solution that you can use to produce, again, any type of report you might need for your business, whether it be ledger-based reports, dashboards, and more. Seppo, why don't you go ahead and tell us from your perspective some of the let's just say some of the main compelling reasons why an audience member here might want to consider myDBR for their organization.
The motivation of developing myDBR was coming from the fact that I was a developer and then a end user for the reports for many years, and I never found a tool that was fitting the needs, meaning that you should be able to write reports in a very fast way, meaning that you don't spend days developing the reports, but instead of you may spend hours or just minutes to create the reports. And that was sort of a motivation. How do we get a reporting system that is fun to create reports, not a pain as it used to be?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. I've always viewed like writing SQL reports like a big puzzle, and I love puzzles. And there's just something about creating a really killer report that makes it feel like you put that puzzle pieces together to paint this beautiful picture. So
yeah, and the end users will get the benefits, not spending that much time or money on the reports.
absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, man, the speed, you nailed it. I think the speed is really the killer feature of this. For those of you who haven't worked with this solution before, but maybe you've worked with other products and tools, whether it be like, for example, Power BI, or even something like Tableau or dare I say Crystal reports, it takes forever to write reports, and you have to think about all the styling and the layout and I mean, just is so slow. I mean, I just think what you've done here in terms of being able to produce something where I can have an idea and turn it into an actionable report for my company in minutes. I mean, there's nothing faster in my mind. Do something where I can have so I think that's really kind of cool. So one of the other cool things I really like about this, Seppo, is the fact that, I mean, maybe you could speak to this a little bit, the fact that this tool doesn't have to replace the other things that you're doing inside of your business, that
it is an addition. So if you have an ERP solution or financial solution, myDBR will sit beside it and just get the data out from the systems, and you can use the data to create reports for you. So nothing will change in your systems. myDBR just reads the data.
Yeah. I know it can do more than just read the data too, which we'll talk about a little bit later on here. But to me, when I was first getting started with and looking at, I had this need to do it. I had a client that was switching systems, and I had the need to write like 100+ reports to cover every aspect of their business. And I was like, man, I don't really have to build something into this application. I just need something that sits next to this, that just reads the data. And I mean, it just clicked. I mean, I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want it to be. And I've got to say too, in terms of the tool, when I'm looking for products and solutions, I always want something that I know is going to be rock solid reliability, not only from the software itself, but then also the team behind it. I've said this before. I actually said it several times in our last podcast. Out of all the products and solutions I've worked with, I feel like the one I never ever have to worry about is myDBR. I mean, it just runs. I mean, it's a workhorse.
We try to make the product so that you don't have to worry about maintenance or stuff like that. It has an auto update feature, so you can, when a new release comes, you just click a button and it will update, and off you go.
Yep. I remember you and I were corresponding by email early on when I was working with myDBR, and I asked you like, well, how do I update the solution? What if it doesn't update correctly? And you're like, Don't worry, it will. And I was like, well, what if it doesn't? And you're like, trust me on this. And I mean, I've seen other products that update that blow up and cause issues, but you were right. I mean, you were right. It just perfectly updates every single time. You know, I don't have to worry about whether or not this solution is going to run or operate. It just keeps going on. Well, very cool. I think one of the best ways of understanding your product is kind of not necessarily comparing it, but just understanding where other products maybe aren't as good. And understanding essentially some of the defining features of myDBR that in the context of what other solutions don't get right. Seppo, maybe you could talk to some of the things that you've seen with the other products in the market where you maybe wanted to fix those issues or resolve those issues in what you built with myDBR.
Well, depending, of course, on the product, but quite often reporting systems have their own setup where you set up the reporting system, extract data into their own whatever database or format.
Yeah.
And transform data here and there, and then you develop reports by perhaps painting layouts or creating layouts and formatting stuff and all those things that don't need to be there, because all those can be automated. You don't have to do that. And then they might have their own syntax or system that you have to learn. myDBR is all SQL. You don't really need to know anything else.
Yep. That's one of the things I love about the product is the fact that you've taken a lot of the stuff that I think takes a tremendous amount of time, and accountants are notorious for, let's say you get a 5-hour project, you're going to spend 1 hour on your data and 4 hours making it look the way you want. I mean, it's Excel's is a double-edged sword. I mean, it's got a lot of features and customization and formatting options, as does myDBR, but like there's nobody telling you how, like what the default should be. I love the fact that with myDBR, you've taken a lot of that guesswork out, and the default reports just coming out look good on their own. I haven't personally found the need to customize, except for those very specific use cases like an invoice or a income statement, to get it to look a specific way, because 9 times out of 10 the default format looks good enough.
Yeah, and you can always do that if you need.
Yeah, it's as complex as you need it to be. I mean, it's a well that is 1,000 feet deep. But if you're fine just drinking off the top of that well, I mean, you're good right then and there. Maybe you could speak to just kind of the let's just say, for example, how quickly you think you can get up and running with an actual report, like just something like a simple select statement. What do you think you could do that in?
Well, starting from scratch, so you don't have anything. You don't even have myDBR installed.
Yeah.
You probably install myDBR in 20 minutes.
Sure.
Or faster if you have template. If you know, I know you have done ready-made installations that probably will go faster.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And then writing the first reports is just a couple of minutes away. So you can get the results. Let's say in first hour you got your first reports.
Yep. And then I'm going to point out, Seppo, with respect to that, it's not just your time; it's also the time of the users. One of the things that I think
exactly that's the most important point.
Yep. Yeah, I don't mind if it takes more time on my part, but the CEO, the controller, the CFO, the manager, I mean, it's got to work, because if it doesn't work, I mean, they're just going to kill it. I mean, they're not going to use the solution.
And that comes to the report development as well, because quite often the writing the report is an iterative process, meaning that you create the first version, the end user sees it, and then he knows, okay, can we add this, or can we do that? And I'd like to see this figure here. And so it's an iterative process, meaning that it takes a couple of rounds to complete the report. And all that time is valuable for the end user, meaning that if the report report writing takes like days. You have to come back to the same subject in every 3 days or every 4 days, and you just can't afford the time or the money to do the development, meaning that you will get less than optimal reports. With myDBR, the turnaround time is so fast that you can basically sit with the client and just report.
Yep. I've done that so many times, whether it be in person or just over Zoom. Like, all right, let me just bring it up. Okay, you want this to be in this order. Okay, you want to do a reverse order on this and then group it by that. Or, oh, you want a subtotal. Okay, well, let me just add that down here. Okay, you don't want to call it a total. You want to call it like a whatever else you might need. I mean, once you kind of have, like, I think of myDBR as being like a palette of colors, like for a painter, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to use this, and I could spit that out so quick and paint that picture so quickly for
the speed is the development. The turnaround time is the key for the successful reports, and that's the aim for us.
Yep. Yeah, and I think you've done that so very, very well. All right, folks, let's go ahead and have our first review question of the day. And kind of in the line with what we've talked about thus far, what are the biggest stumbling blocks for reporting projects? So we've got that polling question up here. If you just want to go ahead and respond. Takes too much time to build reports. Application licensing can be expensive, difficult to set up and learn, or all of the above. Seppo, what do you think the answer is here?
Well, probably all of the above.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I get it. And we'll talk about a little licensing here in just a minute. But once you kind of get this thing up and running, man, I mean, it's just hums. It just keeps going and working on behalf of the user. But it doesn't take long to create reports. The licensing is pretty simple and easy. I mean, I think of something like Power BI or Tableau. I mean, you could be in it thousands of dollars for your organization, depending on the side, before you see one report written. We'll talk about the licensing in a little bit, but the licensing that you offer, I mean, you could be up and running here with the community edition. And as you mentioned, 20 minutes, So maybe why don't you go ahead and shed some light just a little bit on who and where myDBR, who's using it, where is it being used, what type of products, solutions, companies, industries that you're seeing that are using this tool.
Yeah, we started working on the myDBR in 2007, so it's been a long time.
Yeah,
a long time, and we were a bit early on the development because technology was not is in the early infancy, and at that time we had Internet Explorer because myDBR is a web-based solution. So we had things like Internet Explorer 6 and other things. So it was not that mature, but the idea was there, and we've grown since. myDBR is used in over 120 countries, mainly US, Europe, India are the biggest one, and the user base is pretty much anything from individual users to consulting companies, individual companies, big Fortune 500 companies, and pretty much everything in between. And the number of users using this single systems can again vary from one user to 10,000 users, and we probably don't even know all the users, all the setups, how they run.
Sure. I want to point out to the audience that's listening here, especially anybody, which you absolutely should be concerned with privacy and security. myDBR runs 100% on your infrastructure. It's not a cloud product. It's not a SaaS offering. It's not running in their infrastructure. When you download this and you install this, you have 100% control over your data, where it's being used, how it's being used, who has access to it, when it's updated. I mean, it's a standalone solution that's intended to run on a server, but it's not their server. Seppo, maybe this is a good time to mention.
We don't see the data, and we don't even want to see the data.
Yeah, that's that. I'd love for you to kind of expand on that. I wish people, especially here in the US, were a little bit more concerned about privacy and data and control over their data. But, maybe was that ever a concern for you? Were you thinking when I was making this product, like, hey, I want to put privacy first? Because, in hindsight, it looks brilliant.
Yeah, we tried hard to make the product safe, meaning
Sure.
that you can set the specific access rights to the specific groups or specific users. Everything can be controlled, and you have a log of everything, who has seen what, who has accessed what, with what parameters and stuff. So
Sure.
if you want to audit your report use, you can do that.
Sure. And to be clear, I mean, you guys aren't collecting any data, other than the licensing when somebody buys it, the e-commerce required information. Correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. And I've got to assume, with the landmark privacy regulations, like in the EU, you've got GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. Here in the United States, we've got the California Consumer Protection Act, and similar states have made similar legislation here. Everybody should be concerned with privacy, and who has access to their organizational data, because it's going to become a bigger issue for businesses both now and in the future. So I think that's great, man. I mean, that's one of the solutions I look for. I like hosting my own data. I love hosting, or my clients hosting their own and having control over it, because it just seems today everybody wants access to your data, and myDBR is saying, nope, here's the tool, use it how you want. We don't really need to know how you're using it.
Yeah, and for reporting, it's always good to own your own data, because
Yep.
In order to run the company, you need your data. You need to be able to see the data. You need to be able to learn the data, and that's what the myDBR is for.
Yep. I often say right place, right time, and in a format that you can understand it.
Know your numbers.
Yes. And, so many financial professionals that are here. Maybe we talk about some of the use cases and where and how this is being used here as well. But, for our listeners, a lot of people are CPAs. They're building financial statements. They're used to compliance-driven reports. There's a way an income statement needs to look, or a balance sheet. And you can do all of that in myDBR. But one of the things I really think is great is I could put this in the format that the CEO wants to see it in and understand or make decisions for their business with almost no effort. It's just turnkey in that way, versus other reporting solutions, let's say like QuickBooks or Xero. No discredit to those folks, but you're locked into a lot more specific formats with myDBR. I mean, again, it's a painter's palette. You can paint whatever reporting picture you need.
Yeah, myDBR is built on the web standards, so everything is available in the web browsers is available in myDBR. So
Sure. What are some of the use cases you're seeing? What types of reports, from what you can glean, because I know you don't collect a lot of data, but from your perspective, from the questions that people have asked, or I'm sure you get tons of pre-sale questions like, hey, can I use it for X, Y, Z? From your perspective, what are some of the most popular use cases for myDBR?
Well, usually people start with the basic reporting, so they pick up a reporting myDBR for some basic reporting. Once they see what they can do with it, they start using it with different things like dashboards, or some use it as a full development, because myDBR is not just for reporting. You can actually edit the data or add new data.
Yeah.
And create web applications based on that. So some users are using for that, and then some users are using it as a technical JSON or XML gateway, meaning that myDBR sits in between some systems and translate data from one system to another. So sometimes we are quite amazed what people use it for, because it's a general purpose tool.
Yeah, I would really kind of say.
Of course, the root is in the reporting, and that's the core functionality in it.
Yeah, I would really say kind of virtually any business. I mean, everybody needs data to run their business, to make informed decisions, and company, product, customer sales reports. Great. Seppo, I'd love to talk a little bit later on here. You and I've gone back and forth about how this could be used for something like capital budgeting, and the ability to create comments and accept budgets and do revisions. And I mean, it's so crazy, wonderful with how you can use this product. Cool. Well, let's talk about some of the myDBR differences and things that you could ultimately use this for. I think some of the editing is fantastic. I think it's not just simple like, hey, download an Excel. There's lots of particular functionalities that could be added to it. One of the things that I think is really kind of cool too is that you can also integrate this product into other applications as well. And I think we're going to talk about that here in a minute in terms of authentication. Before we move on, is there really kind of any other kind of myDBR differences that you're really proud of that you want our audience to know about?
Well, the data editing, of course, is the key, and the data editing is there to add value for so many times when you create reports, you need additional things. You might have profit and loss statement where you do not have all the information, so you create editable reports where you can fill in the rest of the data, or you have budgeting, you want to edit your budget figures without sending Excel sheets throughout your organization and getting them back and consolidating the data. So all that makes a huge difference on the efficiency.
Cool. Yeah, I completely agree. We'll talk more about that editing here in just a minute. One of the cool things I like about myDBR is the fact that it can be used with, in my opinion, the two most popular databases that are out there, which are MySQL and MariaDB, kind of in the same vein. They're really cross-compatible with each other. And then also Microsoft SQL. Do you see one being more, like easier for you to work with than the other, or anything particular on the databases that you think would be relevant for us to know?
No, for us, the databases are quite similar. So, of course, SQL Server has its own strengths, and MySQL we have their own strengths on the licensing and on the technology side. But it's up to the customer what do they have. In addition to MariaDB and MySQL, we also support Sybase databases, both the ASE and even the old Anywhere database.
Yep. And that probably is a good time to bring up our next review question and polling question here. What databases does myDBR support? And we'll go ahead and launch this here. And Seppo, I think you already said it, but pretty much all of these are supported here. And I think that's great. I mean, for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with databases, I mean, what this basically is it's agnostic. Whether you choose to have your applications running in a Microsoft environment or a more open source MySQL MariaDB environment, you could do either or. And a lot of your bigger accounting products, especially, I mean, people don't realize this, but Microsoft's a heavy hitter in the accounting space. They've got Great Plains, they've got Microsoft AX, they've got Navision, they've got Dynamics 365 Business Central. I mean, they've got a ton of accounting products. Guess what, folks? All of those are running on Microsoft SQL Server. So any of your mid-market accounting and high-end market accounting products are already using Microsoft SQL. I mean, so that tells you could drop in MariaDB right there and be able to extract and populate data into your reports
and you can even do it like so that you can extract data from Microsoft SQL Server and MySQL at the same time. If you have one system in your company that runs with the Microsoft SQL Server, then one with the MySQL Server, you can combine the both in the same report.
Yep, that's kind of the remote server functionality, right, Seppo?
Yeah, and of course you can use the built-in features on the database. So Microsoft SQL Server has the linked servers. You can connect the databases. So there are plenty of options there.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. And I didn't have a spot for this right in the presentation, but I think it'd be a good question to ask nonetheless. Obviously we're seeing cloud everything these days and SaaS everything these days. And truthfully, I try to minimize myself for our company and our clients, SaaS applications, software as a service as much as possible. Any comments on that? I mean, I'm thinking, for example, you've got the non-relational databases like the Mongos. I'm thinking of like DynamoDB from AWS or some of the Azure services there. Are you seeing any requests from your clients for any of the let's say cloud accounting solutions and or non-SQL?
Well, the cloud, you have to distinct on the cloud whether you're running your own database server or running the database in a cloud, and that's the. And then the whole other thing is that if you are using a system that has just the front end for you and you don't have the access to your own data, so that's a difference. If you have your data, if you can access your data in the cloud, then you can use myDBR.
Sure.
If you're using a closed system where you only have a web UI, and you don't have the access to data, then things become a bit more tricky.
Sure. I've had some situations like that, and I've used ODBC tools, Open Database Connectivity. My personal favorite is this tool called CData, where you can extract cloud data and then replicate it to a SQL database and do your reporting from there.
Many companies offer APIs for that as well.
Sure.
You can extract the data and run the reports based on that data. So that will be that is a working solution as well.
Sure. Folks, cloud doesn't always mean better. So I mean that's in some respects you always want to choose the right tool for the right job. And
and cloud is usually a good thing. Nowadays you don't have to run your own servers. You can put the servers in the cloud.
Yep.
And that's fine.
Yep. Do you ever anticipate like any, let's just say out of the box connectors for, and I know I'm asking you to, think about maybe the future here. And I guess the answer is we'll build it if there's enough need for it, but out of the box connectors for any of those solutions, anything you guys ever thought about?
Well, we try to concentrate on myDBR where the myDBR adds value. We don't try to make myDBR do everything that someone else is doing better. There are plenty of connectors in the world, and like the tools that you mentioned that are doing a great job. We encourage people to take advantage of those tools that are good at that, and use myDBR for what it's good for.
Hey, so you know what? I think that's wonderful, man. Right place, right time with the right tool. So that works for me. Well, Seppo, why don't we go ahead and talk about a couple of specific buckets of functionality that I think would be really interesting, which I think are authentication and integration, the parameters that you can use to build kind of the specific reports you're looking for, some of the output options, and some of the way that we can edit these reports. Yep. So from your side, why don't you talk a little bit about how this tool could be used inside the context of a business, and some of the integration options that you can use?
Yeah. When you have a system in-house, whether it's an ERP system or a financial system, you often want to log into the system, and myDBR offers variety of options how to log in, how to authenticate, and how to integrate myDBR with it. So the most straightforward one is to use myDBR login, meaning that myDBR handles the usernames and passwords.
Yeah.
And that's the basic use case.
Yeah.
Then if you have your own ERP solution, you can do single sign-on, meaning that the logins that you use in your ERP solutions, when you log into your ERP system, myDBR is logged in as well with the data coming from the ERP. So meaning that it knows your user, who the user is in the ERP system, knows the credentials in the ERP systems. So users don't have to know and create and maintain other set of usernames and password, because it's the same one.
Yep.
myDBR offers a single sign-on protocol where you can add authentication to your existing system, and or you might be using Microsoft Active Directory. myDBR supports Active Directory out of the box, so you just put in the configuration and point to your AD server, and myDBR will authenticate through the Active Directory. Or you can even create your custom login process, whatever that might be. Or if you are concerned about the safety, if you open up myDBR into the outer world, you can use two-factor authentication.
Yeah, for listeners of CPE Today podcast, you all know that I am a big supporter of two-factor authentication. You use it whenever you can. It really does make a big difference between whether or not you'll have a data breach or not. The myDBR system I've always found to be very secure, but that doesn't change the fact that, for example, you could have Bob in accounting just not, taking care of his passwords and sticking a Post-it note on his desk. He might have access to a lot of privileged information. Well, TFA always can help reduce that risk.
Yeah, and enabling things like two-factor authentication is just a click on the box on myDBR.
Yeah.
And off you go.
Yeah, you've made it, just bonehead simple. And that's what I really like about this. And I mean, there's lots of stuff too, like you can log when users are logging in and out and where they're coming from. I mean, as you mentioned, the two factors, just a point and click and get that started, or even the integration with these other products. If you're using Active Directory, I mean, why make your users hold another password? Just integrate it in, add the keys, you're off and running. I mean, he's done the heavy lifting for you, which I think is fantastic. Now, Seppo, let's talk a little bit about the parameters. And this is something I think is super helpful to help people understand logically what their reports look like. And maybe it makes sense for you to share your screen, show us a couple of different reports and some of the different parameters that you use. But folks, what we're talking about here is, there's going to the report, and then there's actually filtering down to get the data that you need. I mean, and what's great is that myDBR out of the box supports a lot of parameters. So if you need to create a report that allows you to search for a specific customer name or a specific class on your income statement or a start date and an end date, you can do that. I mean, it's not an all or nothing thing. You can be surgical with this tool to find exactly the data you're looking for, which is one of the things I really like about it.
Yeah, myDBR automates the input parameters as well. So if you define that, okay, you want to have date range in your report, so meaning that you can choose the last quarter or last 10 days or last year or specific date range, you just define that, okay, there will be start and end dates, and myDBR will create a parameters for you with the date pickers and all that stuff. Or you might have multi-select list where you pick and this continent will and this thing will be included in the report. All those are available. Checkboxes, radio buttons, autocomplete fees, meaning that if you search for product or whatever,
it just starts to fill it out.
Or range pickers, or pretty much anything that is available.
Yep. Folks, what's great about that, and I this is really a good time to emphasize this. When you have your staff that need to go and they need to run reports, they often are not going to be at the same level of sophistication as the person writing the report. So the person who puts together the report, I mean, they need to have some technical knowledge. They need to have at least rudimentary understanding of how SQL is written. That's probably the main one there. I mean, you could even have a separate person that sets up and installs myDBR, but the person writing the report is usually going to be a technical person. Your end users, though, they're not. I mean, they're staff accountants, they're managers, they're executives. The parameters here are bonehead simple. Okay, you go to the report you want, start date, end date, division of the company, employee name, product name, and you've now created a system where they can self-service. And that's one of the things I really love about this is you've created a system that people can self-service instead of having to go back to the person who normally writes the report and says, "Oh, this is great, Steve. Can you now get it to me for this month or last month?" I can just say, "Hey, go to myDBR, put in the dates you want, and it'll spit out the data that you're looking for."
Well, we're creating myDBR for the last 15 years. I've never heard a customer having to arrange training sessions for the end users to use myDBR. So
wow, that's cool, man.
Probably someone has, but we haven't heard it. So
I've done really basic stuff, mostly just orientation, like where and how to find things. This is through no fault of myDBR. It's mostly the end users. I've found that even just an hour of just basic, here's how you log in, and here's how to use it and how to export reports. It usually will eliminate most of those questions that come in. But it
Yeah,
is, from my opinion, it's very intuitive.
and things like that you can sort
Yes.
out lists and things like that. So click on the header, it will sort those tiny
Yeah.
tips.
Yeah. How about the favoriting of reports? You can find a report and click favorite. I mean, so that you can have your own list of the reports you use most frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also like tips and tricks. I feel that, I mean, you might be able to go run your basic reports, but some of the smaller details I think might be over. That can really benefit the user and really make them love the solution.
Yep.
Now, in terms of exporting of the reports up here, I mean, what's great is myDBR doesn't have to be the end all be all solution here. Most of the time, especially financial professionals, they feel most comfortable. Their spirit animal is Microsoft Excel. So one of the things I love is that myDBR is there when you need it, but it'll also step aside when you want to pull the data down and take it into another format. You can extract this into whatever format you might want. Maybe you could speak to some of the major formats here in what they mean to the solution.
Well, probably the two biggest, the most wanted one are the Excel and the PDF format. So you want to have the data in, whether it's an Excel or CSV.
Yeah.
And run it through within Excel, and PDFs you want to print out whatever that might be, invoice or some formatted layouts that you want to print out with PDF. Then on a technical side, you can also export it into the XML or JSON, meaning that those are usually used with the machine to machine. So if you have installed, other server might just read the data within XML or JSON, or you can even export it to SQL.
Yep.
So
I've never used the SQL output myself, but every other one of these I've done. So
yeah, it's actually quite useful sometimes. You want to take the data and put it in another server or something like that. So
sure, you need populated data, seed data. I get it. For our audience here, some of the main ways. I mean, Excel and CSV are probably the two most common. Excel will bring the formatting options, the colors, the styles that you've selected. I love CSV, comma separated values, because it's just data, just text, which is great. The XML and JSON, I've actually used, Seppo, your tool to produce the sitemap for a couple of different web projects that I've done, which is the index that Google uses to figure out what pages should be on their web results, and I could get a lot more granular with what should be used in Google than I've seen in other products as well.
Yeah, you can do that as well.
And PDF, I mean, it's a no-brainer there. I mean, I've got template letters, form letters for clients, labels, name badges, table tents. I've done so many different things that require like a large mail merge that you would normally download the data, write the thing up in Word, and then merge the data together. I could just do straight inside of myDBR. So I think that's fantastic. Now, there's also, Seppo, tell us a little bit about some of the other reporting elements that you got here. I mean, it really is. I mean, you can make whatever type of reporting picture you want here. Maybe shed some light on some of what these things could do for you.
Yeah. myDBR automatically outputs things like in a table format. So
sure,
if you run a report without any formatting, anything, it will produce scroll tables that you can sort out and things. Then you have scrollable tables, meaning that you want to stay, some columns will stay put when you scroll left to right, like in Excel, or you want to have cross tabulation. We can show you some examples on that later. Page views, meaning that instead of tables, it will produce them by records. Accordions, tabs, you can format the layouts, and of course with myDBRs, well, plenty of charts built in.
Yeah, I think you've got, I think 3 charting libraries.
Yeah, 3 charting engines there, and with the plenty of different chart types. So and you can all those are customizable. And of course, since it is a web-based product, you can take advantage of the web services, meaning you can integrate Google Maps or OpenStreetMaps or pretty much any. If you want to have, let's say, you want to have currency converted, you can use online currency converters and get the data from the web in your reports. So
sure. Yeah, you just do an API call, an application programming interface,
exactly.
and pull it down. Yeah, that's great. And I've done that a few different ways with different projects over the years, where I've got to, pull down external information, weather, something like that, that makes the report more useful.
Yeah, myDBR is on the web, so it can take advantage of anything in the web. So you can embed it or take use in the reports.
Yep. Well, we've got about 10, 15 minutes left here. And I think one of the killer features I think we should spend a little bit of time on, and I would love your thoughts on this. And I think maybe this is a good time to maybe either show that your budgeting example or your income statement example are some of the incredible things that you can do with editing. Because myDBR, we've been talking to it as mostly at this point as a way of reflecting information out, learning from your data, but that's not the only thing it can be used for. We've kind of hinted at the fact that you can also use this to edit and maintain data from these different systems. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can use myDBR to maintain data, edit data, curate data inside of our organization.
Yeah, let's take budgeting for example, because that's a prime example of how things. In many organizations, budgeting is done in a way that financial department creates an Excel template and sends the Excel templates out to the organization, whether it's a business or business unit managers or what, and then request the information to be put in. Then the BU owners fill in the Excel and send them back to the financial department, and then they consolidate the data and see, okay, we need to cut 10% or add more revenue, and then the second round of budgeting goes on. And that after 3 or 4 rounds, everybody gets tired on doing that. And the financial department finishes the figures by themselves. That's usually how it's done. With the editing capability in myDBR, you don't have to send anything. You just offer the business managers and UI where they can fill in the data, and you can see the data live. No sending. You don't need to send any Excels to organization and get them back or consolidate the data, because it's automated. Because everything is in the database, you just calculate it in. We can take a quick example on that.
Sure.
Of course, the editing can be anything. You don't need. You can edit pretty much anything. You can send files to myDBR. You can distribute files throughout the myDBR, whatever.
Sure. If you've got that ready to go, feel free to share your screen. Show us what that might look like.
Let's take a simple example of a. Let's try to screen.
Perfect.
So let's take an example of the budgeting. So here's a sample organization chart where the business owner should enter the budgets, and the green ones, the mark with the greens, the business owners have completed the budgets, but there's a one business owner that still has some work to be done. So this is the view for the, let's say, for the management of the company or the financial department, seeing, okay, it's almost done. And when the business owner, he has his budget and it's almost done. He just needs to fill in the salaries for this year. So there's an increase of salary of 6,000 or whatever for this year, and then you add a comment, hire a designer, and that's done. The budgeting is done from your part, and then you can notify the financial department, okay, I'm done with the budgeting. And then when the financial department sees the data, it's all green, meaning that all the budget is done. And then you can do the second round of budgeting if needed. So for the end users, it's just filling the data, nothing to be sent. You don't need to send the Excels round, and financial department don't need to gather the information or consolidate the different Excel sheets together.
Yeah. I mean, folks.
And you can, of course, the organization structure, you can put anything here. So if you have whatever cost or personal data or whatever, you can attach different reports into everything can be linked together. So any report in myDBR can be linked to any object in the report. So if you click on something, you can add more information.
Yeah, I think it's important to note too, when you were showing that the budget information, we saw a column that said actual cost. This is reading, I just want to make it clear to the audience, this could be reading from your systems, whatever they happen to be in real time.
Yeah.
So as the data changes, you'll see that data change and presented in here as well.
Exactly. The use of the current data is essential that you know your data.
As somebody who's been a lifelong accountant and financial professional, who's done budgeting in all different types of way. I mean, what you've created, I mean, even though this is not the intention of the product, as his core focus, is better legitimately than almost every budgeting product that I've seen on the market, and I've seen them all, so.
Yeah. And since you can customize the budgeting process the way you like, how your company does the budgeting,
yep.
You can pretty much do it.
Yep.
In matter of hours.
Yep. And any report, folks, can be customized inside of this. So if you need to update something, you can do that, which is fantastic. It's not a one-way street here.
Yeah, I can show you another report on how.
Sure.
How it's done. So let's take an example of a profit and loss statement, where we have a scenario where we have two separate companies within a group, each of them having their own financial system. And then what you need to do is consolidate the P&L statements from one company and the other, and adding things into the P&L statement. For example, here we have two companies, company A and company B, with their respective P&L statements. And then you want to have a group P&L statement with additional things like group allocations, since these are the company data. So you might have group allocation coming from somewhere, saying, okay, this is the amount that you need to consolidate.
Yeah, it could be insurance costs, profit sharing, something of that nature. Yeah, you got to split it between your entities.
Or admin costs or whatever.
Sure.
You just put, okay, 67% of the cost will go to company A and 33% goes to company B, and then you combine the data and you will get the group P&L statement with the group allocations in it.
That's awesome.
And of course, since myDB is a reporting system, you can click on, that the IT costs have gone down from the last year. You can click on the IT cost.
Oh, man.
You can click on the cost and see what the individuals' accounts are. You could click on the account and see what actual items behind that.
Yep. And that consolidation functionality is unfortunately lacking in most of the small products. I mean, you really don't get into a good consolidated accounting system that can have multiple entities until you get to the mid to upper mid, and certainly the enterprise market for accounting solutions. But it's not uncommon to have multiple businesses that you need to consolidate into one parent statement. And that's a difficult manual process for people.
Yeah, and often there are company specific items that you need to put into the PL statement, and the PL statement itself might be different from company to company. So having the ability to do custom reports quickly enables you to do the consolidation quite easily. And of course you can, well, if you want to show the compressed form of the PL statement, you can do that or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. You got a lot of flexibility here. I mean, and that's the probably the key takeaway that I would leave. And we're just about out of time. And but I do want to run through one or two other things here. But that would probably be the key thing I'd want you folks to take away with, is the fact that it is just so flexible. You can design this any way that you might need to be. I mean, there's never been a single project that somebody has come to me and said, hey, can I do this? And I haven't been able to do it in myDBR. I sound like a myDBR fanboy, and I am, because it's one of those products that really does fulfill on its mission. And I mean, you spend about 10 minutes and then you fall in love with it. You're like,
and I'm not paying you. So
no, you're not. I came to you and said, this is one of the very few products I was like, well, I shouldn't say few. There's a lot of products I like, and that I only feature the stuff that I really do enjoy, that I use in my day-to-day life for my clients. And I mean, I've said this to you before. I mean, it's the point now I don't use and build my own reporting functionality. I mean, this is just well worth the money, time, and effort to get in play. Now, we're just about out of time here. I do want to mention just a few things, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here and have our final review question. A couple of my personal favorite functionalities that we didn't have time for, but I do want to mention just because they didn't have a spot to fit in earlier. One of the things I love is the fact that you can schedule stuff. You could schedule whatever reports you want with whatever parameters, that it get delivered by email automatically, sales reports, new customers, things of this nature as well. I love that you could do templates, so you can kind of separate the logic of a report and the visual appearance of a report. So you can do letters, invoices, and just make it really easy. I think that's a really great option. And the fact you can make things look any way you want. And one other feature, Seppo looked at it a minute ago, is the linking. I think the fact that you can link one port to another, as he was doing with the budget as well as the income statement, you could drill down to whatever you need it to be, man, to find exactly the data that you want to
if you have a chart, you can click on the chart and specific on that that part of the chart.
Yep. Now, as our last thing here, I do want to mention, just with respect to the options here for licensing, and I just want to point out that myDBR has made it so easy to get in, and they've got and made their licensing so easy and transparent. It's not a SaaS product, although it very easily could be in terms of its per user per month pricing. They offer really kind of three major types. They've got their community license. And if you want to get started with this and just see if this is a good solution for you, guess what? You can get in and you can use this tool. It's a couple feature restricted, but it's almost the entire product for $0, €0 to be more specific. But most of you are going to want to go straight to the premium license, which is at €129, which is incredibly reasonably priced. And with that, you get all the features and functions that most businesses are going to need, the exporting of data. But I would say the access to the support team is fantastic. If you have any issues, you could reach right out to their team and get answers. And then they also offer their OEM license, which is at €395, which gives everything, including things like Redis support for faster querying and the ability to embed this into other applications and white label it. I just want to say, Seppo, I mean, you've just made a very approachable and affordable product that makes it a pleasure to be able to recommend to other people.
Yep, that's the aim.
Yep.
And you can always try it out.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
With zero cost, you could just try it out. And if you have a person to put it up, it won't take long to set it up and try it out.
Yep. And in fact, if you're interested in getting started with myDBR, You can do it for free. As you know, that community license, which is $0, does have a few restrictions on what you can do with it. But I would say it's both in form and substance. It's pretty much the entire thing. And you can get started for free with it. And if you're interested, check out the first episode of this series, which is available also for free at CPE today. And you can also find it on YouTube, Facebook, and other places as well, to talk about some of the nitty-gritty details about how you get set up. And we also have a blog article coming out here shortly with let's call it a abbreviated step-by-step guide on how you can actually get this started for your business. But just watch out.
And you will find demos on the myDBR site if you want to see how it looks like and what different features. Just check on the myDBR website.
Your documentation's excellent. I mean, it'll take you from start to finish, and with really, really well-written documentation on how each feature and function works.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that does bring us to the end of our podcast for today. Before we go, though, we do have one final review question. What type of reporting project could you use myDBR for? Is it reporting from your accounting system, reporting from your CRM system, reporting from your ERP system? Seppo, what do you think it is?
It's all of the above.
Absolutely, you can do that and more. So many different options with respect to where you would use this product and tool. It's so flexible. So today we talked about some of the major features and functions of myDBR from the eyes of the man who created it, his team, and some of the different ways that we can use it for organizational reporting, and some of the major capabilities that we think are really useful for you. Editing reports, some of the different parameters of reports, some of the limitations that are gone when you choose to use myDBR. Now, Seppo, we mentioned this when we were kind of doing the episode planning here, but I think I got to do another episode of this later this year, specifically to drill in on your budgeting process that you kind of proposed here. I've been thinking about that a bunch since you and I talked.
Certainly, that will benefit a lot of people.
I think so too. So not immediately, but stay tuned. If this is a series that's interesting, we'll notify you when it comes out. But I'm thinking later this year, when we start looking at some of the budgeting processes for businesses, that we talk about how we can use myDBR for budgeting inside your business. Now, just as a reminder, if you're watching after the fact on our podcast, again, you can earn credits for watching or listening. Just head on over to cpetoday.com. Our course code today is DBR2. Again, that is DBR2. You'll take a short 5-question quiz and you can earn a credit for today's class. And again, if you're a first-time listener to the podcast, use coupon code 13podcast at checkout. You can get a credit of your choosing, whether it's this class or any other class if you like. Lastly, please consider connecting with us on social media or following our show wherever you happen to receive your content. You can find us just about everywhere at CPE Today. And we'd love for you to leave a comment. Let us know what you think of today's class and whatever else you might want to learn in the future. Seppo, how would people want to connect with you out of curiosity? Is there an easy way for them to find, or just head on over to mydbr.com?
Everything can be found on the website. So just we love the feedback. So any feedback will be appreciated. So
perfect. Well, Seppo, it's my pleasure. Thank you